is ending their term in office. Number 2, to increase their chances for reappointment or alternative jobs and to protect the loot. And 4, keep them afloat. Keep that conversation ongoing on social media. Use the hashtag #InsidePolitics. Without further ado, let's shift focus to this particular term project. And it has been thrown left, right and center. And it seems the political camps are sustaining this particular message. Now, will former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's dalliance with President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration bolster or diminish his chances in the 2022 race for State House? Well, this is the question in the minds of political pundits after Kenyatta hinted he could lead Odinga's presidential campaigns. Now, Murimi Mwangi reflects on similar transitions in the past and explains why Kenyatta appears to play a mix of the tactics of his predecessors, that's former President Mwai Kibaki and Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, in managing their succession. Listen in.
There ever was a turning point in the Independence Party KANU's 5-decade grip on power. It certainly had to be this pronouncement by former President, the late Daniel Arap Moi.
Nataja moja kwanza, alafu watafanya na wengine. Na huyu mzee Uhuru
And with just 6 months to the polls, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, now as president, has hinted at making a similar political pronouncement.
We are interested in continuity. We are interested in continuity of programs like this. And we want to work with people who have that interest.
So what does former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's dalliance with the Uhuru political establishment portend for his 2022 presidential ambition?
People have argued that if Moi's project in Uhuru failed, even Uhuru Kenyatta's project in Raila will fail. They are looking at oranges and apples because the two people are different. One has gravitas, one has numbers, one comes with a history. Indeed, one is a liberation fighter. The other one was a newcomer.
Yet recent events in the presumed push by the state for Odinga as the preferred presidential candidate has brought out what analysts argue is Uhuru's main political card, a cocktail of frontline and backroom tactics of his two predecessors, retired Presidents Mwai Kibaki and Daniel Moi. In Moi's case, the self-declared professor of Kenyan politics not only publicly endorsed Uhuru as his preferred candidate, but also actively campaigned for him. In fact, even after Uhuru's 2002 loss, Moi reconciled with Kibaki, the winning candidate, and even campaigned for Kibaki's re-election in a pact that saw Uhuru rise to the strategic post of Deputy Prime Minister in the Government of National Unity following the disputed 2007 polls. Yet despite giving every hint that he supports Odinga, including unleashing all senior cabinet secretaries in his inner circle to Odinga's 2022 campaign machinery, Uhuru has been giving mixed signals of just how far he would be willing to go to fix Odinga at State House, a power play that has also kept in Uhuru's loop all anti-Ruto presidential hopefuls. A tactic akin to Kibaki's last-term maneuvers that kept all presidential hopefuls in his cabinet, guessing where his heart really lied between Uhuru, Mudavadi and Kalonzo, who were seen as the main frontliners against Odinga, who was at the time seemingly the establishment's unwanted candidate. But how do the 2002, 2013 and August 9th scenarios compare for Odinga?
President Uhuru Kenyatta, more than anybody else, is aware of the folly of political projects because he was one and he suffered for it. He was a good candidate, but the people rejected him on the very basis that he was somebody's project. So more than anybody else, President Uhuru Kenyatta understands how politically unwise it is to create a project.
If he is involved in making sure who succeeds him, it is within his own right. if he is doing so because he wants to campaign and air his opinion about a certain candidate, that is within his own right, constitutional right. I see nothing wrong in that.
The reason why whether he comes for a direction meeting or tour or not doesn't really change much is because for the last 3.5 years, Uhuru Kenyatta lost it in terms of politics.
A sitting president, if he's interested in the direction of things, you cannot underrate his influence. In the gamer community, people of the mountain are waiting for a voice. To tell me that what President Uhuru says will count for nothing, for naught, is to show me you don't understand politics.
Arambe! But as they say, a single day in politics is a long time. And the 6 months leading up to the August 9th presidential contest certainly will be ample time for political surprises and upsets alike as the Uhuru succession enters the home stretch. Murami Mwangi, KTN News.
Okay, so let's talk about this Project Tag and whether it will be a repeat of the 2002 general election. Though, as one analyst has said there, we're comparing oranges and mangoes if we do that. But let me begin with you, Susan. Your camp has been pushing this particular narrative, and you best know the reason why. But is Raila a puppet? Can he be a puppet? This is an individual who both Kenyatta, the current president, and the current deputy president found in active politics. What's your take on that? Well, what's the root cause of this particular narrative?
I think he has been made to understand that he cannot win without State House support. And that's why he's coming out as a project. But let me say this. The president, in his capacity as a voter, first of all as a Kenyan voter, he has a democratic right to make his choice and push for that choice. However, he has no constitutional right as a president under his office to choose a successor for Kenyans. Why? Because if you look at the Constitution, Article 1 on the sovereignty of the people, Sub-Article 2 is clearly spells out at functions and how the sovereign power can be exercised. And it says actually they belong to people, to the Kenyan people. It can be exercised directly or probably through the elected. But when it comes to electing leaders, this is one instance where Kenyans exercise that power directly. And if you look at even the delegation, the president in these circumstances has not delegated authority as the president of the republic to tell Kenyans this is your successor. But as a voter, as a Kenyan voter, he has. And therefore, he's continuing misuse of his office, using State House grounds, using national functions, national meeting to propel a Raila's presidency. It shows that he's like staging a coup on the Constitution, which he swore to defend. He's actually staging a coup on that Article 1, Sub-Article 2, on delegated sovereign power. And I want to say this. I think politically looking at it, the president does not want to go down the history as the only individual in this country who was supported by the State House in 2002 and failed to make it. He wants to have somebody else accompanying him in that historical books. So I think if you ask me whether Raila could still do it himself, oh yes, he could still have done it. I mean, he has his own legacy. But you look at even how this campaign are going, and look at even if you look at the desperation from that camp, Sabina Chege saying we are going to rig the election. It's like telling Raila, you cannot win without our support, magical support. And it's the same issue we're raising with Ken Echeza, the Wakili. That you see, if I were the president and go back, become a Kenyan voter, and say, I'll go, like you say, I'll go back to my community. As Uhuru Kenyatta, tell my community, piga huku. Lakini not to use the instruments, the tools of his office of presidents to try and force a project down our throat. What has come out now so clearly is that the 2022 election in August, we are going to have two projects. The President Uhuru Kenyatta's State House project in the name of Raila Odinga, and the people of Kenya's project in the name of William Samuel Ruto.
Well,
Game we answer.
Game we answer. Hewala. Anyway, Bichache, as I come to you, and we've seen the counter narrative that has been pushed by the Azimio camp that Raila is the people's project. Just the same as she's mentioned, you know, Ruto is the people's project. So who's fooling who right here? Briefly.
Well, what I like about Tanga Tanga is that they actually live up to their name. That even their ideology is Tanga Tanga. Number one, let's look at ideology number one. Tanga Tanga's first complaint is kumi yangu, kumi yake. If that was not a project statement, I don't know what was. Number two, our good friend will sit here and she will say that there was politics done in State House grounds because the president met some Jubilee youth at State House.
You don't have an office.
Now, just wait. The deputy president on a daily, on a regular. And I know this because to go to my house, I have to pass through where he stays. His official residence, not the other one.
Oh, okay.
The one which my taxes pay for, that one. All the politicians greet him there. All the meetings there. The chef is paid for by who? Sugoi Chicken Limited. No.
Okay. Two wrongs don't make a right.
No. What I'm talking about is not about two wrongs make it a right. I'm talking about how they have double standards. It is a Tanga-Tangaing standard. Number two, when you call the president a chapeli for not making you a project, then complain about someone else being a project, again, you are Tanga-Tangaing. But number two, if we are going to say that Raila is a project, the guy who has been number two in 3 successive elections, number two, even when he's not running in 2017, now which project is that? My grandmother who passed on, who kept voting for him election after election, was she also being given project money and project vehicles to do so? No. But this is my point, and my final point on this issue, because I don't want to belabor the obvious.
Okay.
On this show, we've said time above number that we look to a situation where our political parties will stand the test of time. We have said times above number that we do not want a political party which gains power like PNU, and by the next election it is gone. Now, the president is doing the correct thing in that you need to offer leadership to Jubilee, not only for the projects and ideals that you believe in to continue, but also to offer political continuation and stability for our country. Listen, Barack Obama as a sitting president was in full support of the Democratic Party. The president today, Biden, if he was to win a second term and the third term he wanted to, if you asked him who he wants to be a president, he will endorse a Democrat. This is how it should be. Now, you want to tell me that the president should sit over this country where there is someone who's totally antithetical to what you believe in. We know Tanga-Tanga, for example, will say that they will buy land from a 7-year-old because they've delayed in getting an ID. That is what a Tanga-Tanga MP would say. Versus what Raila Odinga would say, did I say it for him? He did say it. Versus Raila Odinga, who believes in your big four, who believes in what you believe. So let's be clear. If we are going to be honest political analysts, we cannot sit here and say we want continued political parties, we want continued programs, and then at the same time bedevil the president for wanting to continue what he believes in.
Should the president focus on a smooth transition? You've brought up Biden and whatnot, but what if Biden supported a Republican?
No, listen, can I give you an example? In the year 2016, I was working in Ghana. And in Ghana, the late Jerry John Rawlings belonged to one party. Yet he endorsed, Nana Akufo-Addo. Now let me tell you something. Bad things happen when good people do nothing. If today Azimio forms a coalition with Jubilee, then the president is not supporting an opposing party. He's supporting people who've chosen to believe what they believe in. And number two, who has left Jubilee? Is the president a member of ODM? No. But the deputy president is the party leader of UDA. So which pretension are we talking about here?
This is interesting. As you bring in your voice, and since it's brought in the Azimio camp, and we've heard about the revamp happening within the Jubilee party, let's talk about it. Do you believe the Jubilee party can manage to turn the tide against the UDA side of the Jubilee party still? Because look at it this way. The more than, is it 170 MPs who are sponsored by Jubilee, it's safe to say that almost more than half have actually decamped from the party. Well, what's your take on that?
Well, again, let's go to first things. And you captured it very well when you said two wrongs do not make a right. The fact that William Samoei Ruto has used his official current residence as a campaign headquarters for UDA does not necessarily mean that also President Kenyatta should use a State House as a campaign headquarters for Jubilee. And there's a huge difference between the current residence. It's actually called the current residence, but where the president stays, it's called State House. So there's a difference. And if you go back to history, President Kibaki and President Moi never ever used State House grounds because, you know, the name suggests State House. They never used State House for political activities. Then I was a political journalist, and President Moi would call meetings at KCC, and they would do all the rallies and they do everything else there. For President Kibaki, he was least bothered with all these political meetings. He didn't do anything, number one. Number two, the fact that Raila has run several times and maybe has become number two, number three, or his vote has been increasing, that does not in any way suggest that it cannot be a project. And you know, if you look at the dictionary meaning, project really is not anything bad. It's an individual or two people coming together, say you want to achieve a certain objective, let's go ahead and achieve the objective. A few days ago, the president hosted some youth leaders. Initially, it was said there were youth leaders, but we've come to realize, in fact, that it was Jubilee youth leaders. And he said that support Azimio. That confirms that, in fact, is going to be a key architect of Azimio. Now, if Azimio is a body corporate, you're going to have one shareholder called Jubilee, another shareholder called ODM, and another one called DAP. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves, among all these shareholders, who will have a lot more weight, who will have 50% plus one.
Okay.
Now, it goes back to the question you ask, which is very germane. That the president wants to reinvigorate Jubilee. There's a very high probability that after this election, Jubilee as a party will have the single highest number of MPs, governors, and MCAs. Because anybody who is underestimating President Kenyatta today is making a mistake. You are going to suffer at your own peril. Because President Kenyatta is the president of the Republic of Kenya, head of government, head of state, Jubilee party leader, and we understand he has economic resources, he's got political power, and he's got amazing social capital. Now, if he pushes that Jubilee has got the single majority in all these institutions, and he names the running mate for Raila Odinga, who will be controlling Azimio, that is where the project tag is coming. Because if you nominate the deputy president, and you control the National Assembly, and you control the Senate, you control the county governors and the county assemblies, who is running the show. It's very easy. That is why the tag has come in, and that's why we've been asking this question times above number. Can President Kenyatta come up and tell us that as he becomes the principal shareholder of Azimio, whose interest is Azimio going to serve? Is it going to be serving Mura's interest? Is it going to be serving Raila's interest, or is he going to be serving himself? Now, in Mombasa, he made an earthquake over a statement when he said that by supporting Azimio, that is the only way to guarantee continuity. Now, this continuity is what we must challenge, because the last 10 years have witnessed very serious economic, social challenges, impunity, corruption, all those things. So the question people would like to ask themselves, when you talk about this continuity, what exactly are you making reference to? And will you be telling Raila Odinga, because now as President Kenyatta will be the majority shareholder, will you be telling him, now lazima ufuate nyayo zangu, or will Raila have capacity to come with a clean slate if the running mate, if he's vice president and the other people are responding or are reacting directly to President Kenyatta? So those are the questions on the table. And in my view, in conclusion, nobody should deride President Kenyatta for saying that he's going to support Raila Odinga. And you know, sometimes we use comparisons like the ones you used of, you know, the Republicans and Democrats. It's because in that part of the world, people respect political parties. In Kenya, there's no difference between this party called DAP and ODM. In fact, DAP is a fully owned subsidiary of ODM. Now, there's no difference between UDA and ODM. If you look at the manifestos, you look at their thinking, you know, it's not as if UDA has got an entirely different policy on taxation or on agriculture. No, the germane point I'm making is all the manifestos they're using, they were crafted a long time ago by people like Professor Nyang' Nyong'o. So what political parties do right now is they pick those documents, they cut and paste. There's no ideological difference. So in my view, really the president needs to tell us, when you talk about continuity, what does it mean? Will you give Raila powers to run the nation?
That's interesting. Before your right of reply, Susan, let's cross over to Wakili. And as we continue from where Dismas left off, it would be proper to hear your take on the projects. And this time around, not the Raila project or whoever, but the pending projects by the Jubilee administration, this close at a transitional period. Because talking of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and if Mombasa is anything to go by during the scale-up of UHC, we'll definitely see a lot of politics during the launch of this particular project. And just this week, I think the government spokesperson was in Kisumu, still monitoring the ongoing projects. The CSs also stamped up their ongoing inspection projects, you know, the tours. We just saw that this year. How critical are these projects to not just Uhuru's legacy, but whichever camp he associates with?
Thank you, Jesse. But first, let me comment to the project in terms of personalities, and then go to project in its proper meaning. Those two leading aspirants, the two horses, are both projects. Raila Odinga is a project of the progressive forces from 1992. William Ruto is a project of the retrogressive forces. Raila Odinga is a project of anti-corruption crusaders. When you look at people propelling his presidency, are people who believes in anti-corruption. William Ruto is being babysat by individuals who are suspects of corruption. Raila Odinga is a project of the people of Kenya. The other fella is forcing himself onto the people. Come back to the project in its proper meaning. It is important for the president and the Jubilee administration to complete the projects that they started, so as one, to secure the legacy of President Kenyatta, and two, to add political value to whichever camp that they are going to support. Central Kenya, for instance, the rhetoric in Central Kenya by the Ichungwas of this world, the Wamuchombas of this world, and Rigathi Gachagua, is that the president has not benefited Mount Kenya in any way for the 10 years. So if the president secured his legacy in Mount Kenya in terms of development, and secured his legacy in different parts of this country, the coastal region, the Nyanza region, the western region, in terms of development, it is going to add political capital to whichever camp that the president chooses to associate with. It is therefore important to release cabinet secretaries and other senior civil servants to inspect the completion of projects, to fast-track the president's legacy in the next 6 months, and to stamp political authority so that when he comes out and points at his direction, Kenyans can say, he did a good work, let us go by what he is saying. And then lastly, Jesse, if you are very careful, when the deputy president is having a political campaign where we have successful Jubilee projects, he chooses to associate with the completed projects. He was here in Kakamega some times back, and he was talking about the Lurambi, Ingotse, Nambacha, Kandui Road, that it was complete. When on the ground, the road is not complete. Even the deputy president is struggling to associate with the completed projects of Jubilee, that he has no idea whether they are stalled or they are completed. It therefore means if the president completes his projects, he's going to give very good political capital to his handshake brother, Raila Amolo Odinga. And to close my statement, Uhuru promised to support a Jubilee candidate from the onset. he was saying kumi yangu, kumi ya Ruto, with an assumption, in my opinion, that Ruto will be in Jubilee. But if Ruto has bolted out of Jubilee and gone to the wheelbarrow, chosen the wheelbarrow as his vehicle, Uhuru is right to support Raila Odinga once ODM and Jubilee signs an accord under Azimio la Umoja. He would have kept the promise that he made to his supporters in 2013 and in 2017.
Well, that's interesting. And I also want to perhaps just a point of correction. No side has monopoly over corruption, just to air out Wakili. I'm pretty sure you know that. But Susan, a lot has been said. As right of reply, just briefly, but I'm reading a tweet right here from Okello Mwalimu who says, the Tanga stalwarts owe us one explanation. Were the president to honor his pledge of kumi yangu, kumi yako, could Ruto have become a state project? Or they're just behaving like jilted lovers?
Okay, Jesse, let me first of all respond to HSA.
Yeah.
That, like you ably put it, nobody has monopoly over corruption. And you can't come here and lie to us that Raila is surrounded by people who are clean. Raila Odinga, Right Honorable Raila Odinga has been known in this country to be a sanitizer. We've seen on several locations sanitizing all these people who had questionable queries on corruption. So, but that be as it is, I want to say this, and to go back from where we started and say that with this complicate, the handing over, I want to say President Kenyatta has, handing over is beyond him, and if William Ruto wins presidency, he's obligated to hand over, regardless of who he has piled around Raila, he has to hand over. I mean, there are no two ways about it. Yeah. And as it is today, and which makes it even sad for Kenyans that you put together young people, and already we're being told that there is that report that came out and say 4 out of 10 Kenyans cannot pay their rent. And I want to believe all those young Kenyans who don't have jobs, whom we cobbled together in State House and incited them to start singing Yote Yawezekana against his principal assistant, who we know, if anything was to happen, and God forbid, that the principal assistant is going to assume power as the president. So what are we seeing? We are seeing a recipe of chaos, anticipated chaos, and we're also trying to see, and with remarks from Sabina Chege, people they've realized that this project is not selling, so they're trying to prepare Kenyans that whatever it takes, we will rig, as we have always rigged, and those are very unfortunate remarks. So I just want to say this, that my friend Ken Echesa, today you must have stolen the script from Bichach here. I think you'll go home with a heavy pocket. I want to say that
those allegations we cannot prove.
Let me make a quick point.
I hope the conversation does not degenerate.
On a light note.
On a light note, yes.
No, you know, the moment you say these things, and then you remember some sage James Orengo, who is an eloquent debater and a member of the National Assembly, he would actually insult somebody, then he's told to offer an apology. He offers the apology, but the insult has already been made.
Yes.
So whatever Susan has said here, in my view, is unacceptable. But going to the germane issue, when the president speaks about...
I apologize.
Withdraw that statement.
So it's deleted from the answer. So in my view, the issue is, when you talk about continuity, does it mean that it's only Raila Odinga who can go on with continuity and are not, say, Jimmy Wanjigi or Ruto? And then number two, if you are a solid leader, you are supposed to create systems that outlive you. You must not be around to see those systems working. Look at Bill Gates, look at Michael Joseph, look at all these big players. You create systems which outlive you. So you shouldn't tell us that you need to be hanging around for these projects to be a success, unless these projects were serving selfish interest, and you need your friend to give you personal guarantees that they're not going to be scattered.
Okay, that's interesting. Allow us to take a short break on that particular note. As you can see,